There is a part of the mind that can feel wild, fast, and out of control, and there is another part that quietly longs for calm, clarity, and direction. Between these two parts, a constant negotiation happens every day. Thoughts rush in, emotions rise, old reactions repeat, and somewhere inside there is the question, is this running the show, or is there a different way to relate to the mind? Mental control is often imagined as forcing the mind to be quiet or positive all the time. But real mental control is not about pushing thoughts away or pretending difficult feelings do not exist. It is about understanding a few core principles that change the relationship with the mind itself, so that thoughts become something that can be navigated, not something that dictates every reaction. The first principle is simple but powerful. Thoughts are events in the mind, not absolute truths about reality. The mind produces thoughts in the same way the lungs produce breath, and the heart produces a heartbeat. Some thoughts are useful, some are neutral, some are completely distorted, dramatic, or based on old pain. When mental control is weak, every thought is believed immediately. They did not answer the message. That means they do not care. A mistake was made. That means everything is ruined. There is anxiety. That means something terrible is about to happen. Each of these is just a sentence passing through awareness, but when treated as truth, it takes control. Real mental control begins when that automatic belief is interrupted with a simple recognition. This is a thought, not a fact. That small distance creates space to choose a response. A second core principle is that what is repeated becomes stronger. The mind is like a path through a forest. The more a certain path is walked, the clearer and easier it becomes to walk again. If every day the mind repeats, "This cannot be handled," "Nothing ever works out," or "There is never enough," those paths become highways. After a while, the thoughts feel automatic, as if they appear out of nowhere, but they are being strengthened by repetition. This is not a moral failure. It is simply how the brain works. It builds efficiency. Mental control means becoming aware of which paths are being walked most often and choosing, again and again, to walk different ones. At first, the new paths feel awkward and weak, but every time they are chosen, they grow. Another principle: feelings and thoughts are deeply connected, but they are not the same thing. The state of the body influences the kind of thoughts that appear. When tired, hungry, overwhelmed, or overstimulated, the mind is more likely to generate catastrophic or hopeless stories. Everything is ruined. No one cares. It is all pointless. When rested and regulated, the same situation often looks less dramatic. Mental control, therefore, is not only about changing thoughts with thoughts. It is also about caring for the body so the mind does not have to do all its work from a place of exhaustion. Regulating breath, resting, moving the body, and simple grounding practices are not separate from mental control. They are part of it. A crucial principle is that attention is the main fuel of the mind. Whatever is given attention grows in strength and emotional weight. Two people can have the same day, and at night one remembers only what went wrong, while the other remembers a mix of difficulties and small good moments. The difference is not that one had a perfect day. It is that their attention is trained differently. Many inner systems spend hours each week rehearsing worst-case scenarios, replaying arguments, or imagining future rejection. This habit makes the mind a hostile place, even when nothing terrible is happening in the present moment. Mental control is not about ignoring real problems. It is about choosing what to feed with attention and what to gently let pass. There is also the principle of mental posture. In the same way the body has posture, slumped, rigid, relaxed, the mind does too. Sometimes the mental posture is collapsed. There is nothing that can be done. Everything is too much. Sometimes it is hyper-aggressive. Everything is a threat, attack, or defend first. There is a third posture that mental control tries to cultivate: stable, curious, and grounded. In this posture, the mind observes what is happening without collapsing into helplessness or exploding into panic. It can say, "This is difficult, but let us see what is actually here," or "Fear is present, but fear alone will not make this decision." This posture does not appear automatically. It is built through practice, especially in small, everyday situations. Mental control does not mean controlling which thoughts appear. That part cannot truly be controlled. Thoughts arise from memory, environment, body state, past experiences, and many other factors. The controllable part is what happens next. One core principle is the first thought, second response idea. The first thought can be automatic, old, unhelpful. There was no reply, so something wrong must have been done. Instead of wrestling with that first thought, mental control invites a conscious second response. Interesting, that old fear appeared again. But what else could this mean? Are there other possibilities? This second response is where choice lives. It does not require erasing the first thought. It simply refuses to let it be the only option. Another principle, language shapes mental reality. The words used inside the mind create atmosphere. Words like always, never, everyone, no one, everything make experiences feel heavier than they are. Everything is a disaster is rarely true, but it feels true when repeated. Mental control notices these exaggerated words and replaces them with more accurate ones. Sometimes mistakes are made. This situation is hard. Today was a bad day. Instead of life is hopeless. This is not about sugarcoating. It is about not turning one moment into a permanent identity or one difficulty into a total conclusion about existence. There is also the principle of mental boundaries. Not every thought deserves a long conversation. Some thoughts are like strangers passing by on the street. They appear, make noise, and if given too much attention, they can disturb the whole day. A passing thought may say, "Everyone else is ahead." Instead of inviting that thought in for a long discussion, mental control can answer briefly, "That is just a comparison thought," and then gently return attention to the present task. This is a skill, deciding which thoughts are allowed to stay and which ones are allowed to leave without engagement. An important principle for mental control is acceptance of inner weather. Just like the sky has cloudy days, rainy days, and clear days, the mind has different climates. Some days are naturally more anxious or low. On those days, trying to force the mind into perfect calm often creates more stress. Mental control here looks like adjusting expectations and strategy. On a heavy mental day, the goal might shift from feel amazing to do the next small, kind thing, or support the nervous system so it can settle. This prevents the mind from adding a second layer of suffering, judging itself for not feeling good enough. Acceptance of mental weather does not mean giving up. It means working with the mind, not against it. Another principle, perspective can be trained. When something painful happens, the mind tends to zoom in so closely that nothing else can be seen. Mental control practices the ability to zoom out. Zoomed in, the thought is, "This mistake will ruin everything." Zoomed out, the view becomes, "This is one chapter in a long story. This is not the end." Simple questions help with this. Will this matter in 5 years? What would be said to someone loved in the same situation? These questions do not erase the problem, but they soften the mental grip around it. Humor is also a subtle but powerful principle. The mind can be dramatic, extreme, and sometimes almost theatrical in the way it tells stories. Being able to gently smile at this without harsh judgment is a form of control. When a familiar mental pattern starts again, catastrophizing, assuming the worst, imagining unlikely scenarios, there can be a quiet inner response. The inner storyteller is active today. This lightness breaks the spell a little. The thought becomes something seen, not something fused with identity. The mind loves to be taken absolutely seriously. Mental control sometimes means not giving every story the full seriousness it demands. There is a deeper principle behind all of this. Mental control is less about domination and more about relationship. When the mind is treated only as an enemy that must be beaten into silence, it often becomes louder. Thoughts are part of the system's attempt to protect, predict, and make sense of life. Some are outdated, some are misguided, but their original function was to help. Seeing this allows a more compassionate relationship. The mind is trying to prepare for pain, but this way of thinking is creating more pain than it prevents. This attitude softens inner conflict and makes change more sustainable. Mental control is also supported by clarity of values. When it is clear what truly matters, honesty, kindness, growth, stability, creativity, connection, those values act as anchors. Thoughts may push in many directions, emotions may surge, but values give a stable point to return to. A thought might say, "Avoid this conversation. It is uncomfortable. The value of honesty answers. Comfort is not the only goal. Truth also matters. A thought might say, there is no point in trying. The value of growth answers. Trying is part of living in alignment, even when results are not guaranteed. Acting from values, even when thoughts are noisy, is a high form of mental control. There is another principle that is often forgotten. Environment shapes the mind. Mental control is not only an inner task, it is also influenced by what surrounds the system every day. Constant exposure to chaos, conflict, noise, and comparison will naturally agitate the mind. Gentle time limits on news, social media, or draining conversations are not avoidance. They can be acts of protection. Choosing what enters through the eyes and ears is just as important as choosing which thoughts are entertained. Mental control is easier when the environment is not constantly pushing the mind into overload. Even small changes, a quieter corner, a simple walk, a few minutes away from screens, can support the principles already described. Another often ignored principle is that the mind needs clear instructions. When no clear intention is set, the mind tends to follow the strongest habit or the loudest fear. A simple daily question such as, what kind of mental posture is being chosen today? Or what matters most for this day? Acts like a gentle command. Instead of waking up and immediately being pulled into every notification and worry, the mind receives a direction. Today, the focus is on patience, or today, the focus is on taking one thing at a time. These small choices guide attention and behavior. Mental control grows when the mind is not left on autopilot, but is given a simple, repeated direction. One more principle: consistency beats intensity. A single intense mental practice done once will not change long-established patterns, but small daily habits can. 5 minutes of observing thoughts without attachment, a brief check-in with the body, a moment of writing down and gently questioning one unhelpful thought, choosing one value-based action per day. These seem small, but they add up. The brain and nervous system respond to repetition over time. Mental control is not a single moment of breakthrough. It is a series of small choices that, over weeks and months, build a new default setting. It is important to remember that mental control does not mean never struggling again. It means that when struggle appears, there are tools and principles available. Thoughts may still be loud, but they are no longer the only authority. Old patterns may still show up, but they are recognized faster and believed less. The mind becomes a place that can be navigated with more skill, instead of a storm that must be survived blindly. In the end, mental control core principles are not about becoming a cold, perfectly efficient machine. They are about becoming more conscious, more kind, and more stable inside. Even while life continues to be unpredictable, thoughts will continue to appear. Emotions will continue to rise and fall, but the way they are met can change. With practice, the mind becomes less of a cage and more of a tool, something that can serve deeper values instead of blocking them. If these reflections on mental control brought clarity about how the mind actually works beneath the surface, this is an invitation to keep exploring these inner skills more deeply. For more content on the mind, emotional healing, inner stability, and conscious living, subscribing to this channel keeps these insights close. Liking this video helps this kind of message reach others who feel trapped in their thoughts. Sharing it with someone overwhelmed by their own mind might give them a simpler, kinder framework. And if one principle stood out as especially important while listening, naming it in the comments can be the first step to turning that principle into a daily practice.